Hello everybody, welcome to the Mad Medic. Today we're going to take a look at everybody's probably most feared design and the design they're most in awe of, non-metallic metal. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, anything you can, helps the channel out a lot. And without further ado, let's dive in. Working with non-metallic metals, you have to look at your color gradient. Gold being one of the harder ones to work with, you're going to want to use a lot more browns and then a mid-dull yellow up to your brightest yellow. And this is the formula that I've been using that's worked out fairly well. So that's going with a deep mahogany, which if I pull the model over, you can see I've already got it based with this, and I wasn't particularly neat or polite with it when I did it. But from here we're going to move into the burnt sienna, into a mid yellow, a bright yellow, and then our final highlight will be this ice yellow from AK that has been a really good paint for highlighting yellows in general, but especially for gold, as it's got better saturation than using, say, a pure white. Let's get these on the palette and get started. Alrighty, so the first thing with any model, but especially with metals, is it's very important to pick out where your brightest highlight is going to be, which on her is going to be right down the middle of this leg, and we'll start blocking that out. Always want to make sure with a non-metallic metal, because you're going from really bright to really dark, you want to make sure you get good coverage of the area you're doing, but that you don't overdo it. And you can also pick some of this out just by the general shape of the model. And even where you can see the light hitting it with the matte coat of paint that's on there. And like this here, all the little details, I'm going to hit some of them with this, but more than likely I'm going to save a lot of that for just the brighter colors. And then you can see on here there's this really hard to find line. So from there, I'm actually going to mix up a wash. That I can lay down right along that edge. And what this is going to do is it's going to help me with that blend. You got to remember, these washes, when you do this, are going to go on really bright and intense, but then they'll dull quite a bit as it dries. We're going to make sure we have all of the points that we want covered. And then we'll let this dry and go on to the next color.
So with things like this, you don't have to do super smooth blends and have everything look perfectly clean. There's little tricks and ways to clean that up later. Now with that done, we will move on to the next. Which in there again, we're going to block in the highlights the best we can. And remember, with non-metallic metals, your next highlight is going to be smaller than the last one, and you're pushing from dark to light incredibly quickly. So there's going to be very little of this mid-tone used. And you may, especially like I can already tell, I'm going to have to come back in and touch up. Around that small detail. And this will work with any color. Say you wanted to do a red metal. Gold is typically one of the hardest ones to pull off. And as you can see here, it's the biggest thing to remember with non-metallic metal. It's going to look like junk right up until it doesn't anymore. There's really no point where it looks okay. It's just going to look bad until it doesn't anymore, and there is not a thing you can do about it. And then right here you can see I've just got a wet brush with a little bit of paint in it for that wash stage. And I'm just kind of going around, blending out my edges and getting everything a little more clean. I can already see on here that we are going to come over on this side a little more. You can tell I have too much water in my brush, so we're going to fix that issue. Non-metallic metal is difficult, but not impossible. You just kind of have to spend a little extra time looking at the object and basically figuring out how light interacts with it. A really great way to do this is to take pictures of your model that are black and white under a direct light source, and that will give you a really good point of reference for how the light is going to interact with it. Alrighty. So now, just like before, we're going to let this dry, and then we will go on to the next color. Alrighty, moving into the next step, we are looking at your brighter yellow. And you're going to want this to be fairly dry when you apply it, because this is really going to be where the biggest, brightest highlights start, so you want to have a good amount of control. And you're really going to follow where that perception of light is. And this is a technique that is nothing but trial and error. And you also usually want to have good paint for this. You don't want to be using anything that's too grainy or doesn't cover very well or that's going to leave textures behind. Like right now I can tell this brush is maybe even a little too wet. But we're going to cover up most of that previous layer, making sure we started all the high points. And don't be afraid if you have to later. Go back in and darken up any areas that got too bright. But you really want to push that super bright color quickly when it comes to wanting that shiny look. Alrighty, we're going to let this one dry, probably put another coat on it, and then we'll move on to the next. Then this last step is going to be the point where it really starts to get that punchy metal look, if she will stay on my little handle here. Is your larger, rounder surfaces, you'll have bigger highlights. Your edge highlights, you're only going to hit the highest points with your brightest colors. So like around the plates of the foot here. Up into the shin. The kneecap there, along the top of the greaves, and then I usually kind of trace a point down the middle of large plates. It looks like that top plate there might still be a little tacky. And when you have folds and curves in the armor, like we do here, I'll just put a little dot to denote that definition and kind of give a point for where that light's reflecting from. Touch up the armor points on the foot there. And then the fleur-de-lis on the thigh plate. Just with the edge of the brush, getting the highest points. And this last one along the thigh plate. You have to remember in something like this where the whole suit is going to be gold, you're also going to be thinking about reflections. So you're still going to have this very bright spot on the inside here because you're going to have light reflecting. You're still going to have this brightness right in here because you're going to have reflection from the other leg over. You're going to have a bright spot on the underside of the arm from reflection on this. It's all shiny metal, so it's going to bounce light. That's all I have for you today, folks. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the little bell notification icon so you know when a new video drops. and then we'll keep doing videos working on St. Celestine here in the future.